Dr. Nari Kim wiped the sweat from her forehead as she finished stitching up the last patient of her 14-hour shift. The medical bay of Kepler Station hummed quietly around her, its blue-tinted lights casting long shadows across the sterile walls. Through the massive viewport, she could see 3 different alien cargo ships docking at the station's outer rings, their hulls glowing with the strange bioluminescent markings that helped them navigate through hyperspace. The coffee in. Her mug had gone cold hours ago, but Nari didn't care. She loved working here, even when exhaustion made her bones ache. Kepler Station was one of the largest trade hubs in this sector of the galaxy, bringing together dozens of different species. As one of only 12 human doctors aboard the massive structure, she treated everyone from crystal-based Zilithians to the 4-armed merchants of the Outer Rim. Her comm device beeped softly, and she almost ignored it. Probably another routine check-in from Station Command. But something about the sound made her pause. It wasn't the usual soft chime. This was different. Urgent. The emergency beacon cut through the air like a knife, sharp and desperate. Nari's hands moved automatically, grabbing her medical scanner before her tired brain even processed what was happening. The display showed critical readings from Residential Block 7. Anaphylactic shock, severe. A child. Her training kicked in like a switch being flipped. Dr. Nari Kim had served with the Terran Medical Corps for 8 years, including 2 tours treating wounded soldiers during the asteroid mining wars. She'd saved lives in the vacuum of space, performed surgery while enemy ships fired plasma cannons overhead, and once treated 50 casualties when a transport ship's life support failed. She grabbed her emergency medical kit and ran. The corridors of Kepler Station stretched out like a maze before her. Her boots pounded against the metal flooring as she weaved between late-shift workers heading home. A group of tall, green-skinned Valdorians stepped aside as she sprinted past, their 4 eyes tracking her movement with mild curiosity. Near the transport tubes, a maintenance robot rolled out of her way, its mechanical voice apologizing in 3 different languages. "Emergency medical response," Nari called out as she reached the residential section checkpoint. The security scanner, operated by a bored-looking Zentorian with purple tentacles instead of hair, barely glanced up from his datapad. "Block 7 is Valdorian Authority territory, human," he said, his translator device giving his words a mechanical tone. "You need proper clearance to enter residential zones." "This is a medical emergency," Nari replied, not slowing down. "Emergency. Protocols override all jurisdictional boundaries." The Zentorian made a sound that might have been laughter. "Good luck with that, human." Nari ignored him and kept running. Block 7 was deeper in the station, where the artificial gravity felt slightly different, and the air recyclers hummed with a lower pitch. This was where civilian families lived, mostly humans who worked in the station's various shops and services. The walls here were painted in warmer colors, trying to make the metal corridors feel more like home. She could hear commotion ahead. Voices shouting in Korean, someone crying. The emergency beacon on her scanner was practically screaming now, showing readings that made her heart race. Whoever this child was, they were running out of time fast. As she rounded the corner, she saw them. A small crowd had gathered outside apartment 7B. A woman was on her knees beside a young boy, maybe 8 years old, who was lying motionless on the floor. His lips were blue, his breathing shallow and labored. "Please help him," the woman cried, when she saw Nari's medical uniform. "He ate something at the food court, some kind of alien fruit. He can't breathe." Nari dropped to her knees beside the child, her scanner already working. Minho Park, according to his ID chip. Massive allergic. Reaction, airway closing, blood pressure dropping. She had maybe 3 minutes before his system would shut down completely. Her hands moved with practiced efficiency, pulling out the epinephrine injector, preparing the airway stabilizer. Around her, the crowd watched in tense silence. She could hear someone speaking into a comm device calling for station security. "It's going to be okay," she whispered to the unconscious boy as she prepared the injection. "You're going to be fine." She didn't know that 3 Valdorian Authority enforcers were already on their way, their plasma tasers fully charged. She didn't know that they considered any medical treatment in their residential zones to be a violation of their corporate charter. She only knew that a child was dying, and she was the only one who could save him. The emergency medical protocols were clear. Human lives came first, no matter where they were, no matter who was in charge. That's what it meant to be human in this vast galaxy full of different species and competing interests. Humans helped each other, even when the rules said they shouldn't, even when it might cost them everything. Dr. Nari Kim's hands moved like lightning as she knelt beside 8-year-old Minho Park. The boy's small body convulsed on the cold metal floor of the apartment, his face turning a dangerous shade of blue. His mother, Hyeri Park, sobbed nearby while his father Jinwoo held her back, both of them watching helplessly as their son fought for his life. "His throat is closing up completely," Nari muttered, her medical scanner beeping frantically. The readings were terrifying. The alien fruit Minho had eaten at the food court contained proteins that human bodies had never encountered before. His immune system was attacking itself in panic. She pulled out the epinephrine injector, a sleek device that looked more like a pen than a life-saving tool. Around her, the small apartment felt cramped with all the neighbors who had rushed in to help. An elderly woman from next door was praying in Korean while a teenage boy live-streamed the emergency on his wrist communicator, hoping to get help faster. "Please save him," Hyeri whispered through her tears. "He's all we have." Nari pressed the injector against Minho's thigh. The device hissed as it delivered the medication directly into his bloodstream. For a moment, nothing happened. Then slowly, very slowly, some color began returning to his lips. "Come on, kid," she whispered, checking his pulse. Still weak, but getting stronger. She reached for her airway stabilizer, a small tube that would help keep his breathing passage open while the medication worked. That's when the door exploded inward. 3 massive figures filled the doorway, their bulky armor making them look like walking tanks. Valdorian Authority enforcers were known throughout this sector of the galaxy for their ruthless efficiency. These aliens stood nearly 7 feet tall, with thick grey skin that looked like natural armor. Their faces were hidden behind dark helmets that glowed with red scanning lights. The lead enforcer stepped forward, his heavy boots making the apartment floor shake. A holographic badge materialized above his chest, displaying his authority rank. The name Enforcer Cruel appeared in glowing letters, along with symbols that most humans couldn't read. Medical intervention detected in violation of residential. Code 7749. His voice boomed through a mechanical translator. "Cease all treatment immediately." Nari looked up from Minho, her hands still working to stabilize the boy's breathing. "This child is dying. I'm a licensed physician responding to a medical emergency. You are practicing medicine in a restricted, residential zone without proper Valdorian Authority permits," Cruel replied, stepping closer. His 2 companions moved to flank him, their armor clicking and whirring with each step. "This constitutes a Class 5 violation of our corporate charter." The other residents of the apartment backed away in fear. Everyone knew stories about the Valdorian enforcers. They controlled the residential blocks of Kepler Station like their own private kingdom, answering to no one except their corporate bosses back on the Valdorian homeworld. "I don't care about your permits," Nari shot back, inserting the airway stabilizer into Minho's throat. The boy's breathing immediately became easier, though he was still unconscious. "Emergency medical protocols override local regulations. That's galactic law." Enforcer Cruel's helmet tilted slightly, as if he found her words amusing. "Human law does not apply in Valdorian territory. You will cease treatment and surrender yourself for processing." "This child will die!" Nari shouted, her voice echoing off the apartment walls. She could feel Minho's pulse getting stronger under her fingers, but he wasn't out of danger yet. He needed at least 10 more minutes of treatment, maybe 15, the second enforcer, shorter but somehow more menacing than Cruel, spoke up. His translator gave his words a hissing quality that made everyone in the room shiver. "Compliance is not optional, human." Behind them, more residents had gathered in the hallway. Nari could see dozens of faces peering in, most of them human families who lived in this block. Some were recording everything on their personal devices, though she doubted the footage would ever make it past Valdorian censors. You have 30 seconds to comply, Krul announced, reaching for something on his belt. The device he pulled out looked like a cross between a gun and a lightning rod, crackling with blue energy. A neural disruptor, capable of shutting down a human nervous system instantly. Nari's hands never stopped moving. She activated her portable oxygen generator, a small device that would help Minho's lungs work while his body recovered from the allergic reaction. His color was definitely improving now, but his brain had been without proper oxygen for too long. Any interruption in treatment could cause permanent damage. 20 seconds, Krul warned. Yeri Park suddenly stepped forward, placing herself between the enforcer and her son. Please, she begged, he's just a little boy. Let her finish. The third enforcer, silent until now, raised his own neural disruptor. All three weapons were now pointed at the small group huddled around Minho. 10 seconds. Nari looked down at the unconscious child, then up at the three armored figures towering over them. In that moment, she made the same choice that humans had been making for thousands of years when faced with impossible odds. She chose to keep fighting. No, she said simply, continuing her treatment. The blue energy hit her like lightning, coursing through every nerve in her body. As consciousness faded, her last thought was of Minho's small hand, still warm under her palm. The blue energy from the neural disruptor left Dr. Nari Kim's body completely paralyzed on the cold apartment floor. She could hear everything happening around her, but couldn't move a single muscle. Her medical training told her the paralysis would wear off in about 20 minutes, but 20 minutes might as well have been 20 hours. Beside her, 8-year-old Minho Park's breathing grew weaker and weaker. His mother, Hieri, was screaming, trying to reach her son, but the Valdorian enforcers pushed her back with their massive armored hands. His father, Jinwoo, was shouting at them in Korean, his voice breaking with desperation, but the aliens didn't understand and didn't care. Please, Hieri begged, pointing at the medical equipment scattered around her dying son. Just let me use her tools. Show me how to help him. Enforcer Krul's mechanical voice cut through her pleas. Unauthorized medical equipment. Everything. Must be confiscated. Nari watched helplessly as they kicked away her oxygen generator, the device that was keeping Minho alive. She tried to scream, to tell them they were murdering a child, but no sound came from her paralyzed throat. The boy's lips turned blue again, then purple. His small chest stopped moving. Yeri's scream echoed through the entire residential block. What the Valdorian enforcers didn't know was that Kepler Station's surveillance system had been upgraded 3 months ago with new Terran technology. The tiny quantum cameras were invisible to most alien scanners, and they recorded everything in perfect detail. Every word, every movement, every second of the tragedy was captured and automatically transmitted to the station's central database. The footage should have been buried in Valdorian bureaucracy, classified and forgotten, but 18-year-old Daeho Kim, no relation to Dr. Kim, had been live-streaming the emergency on his personal communicator. He was a tech genius who had hacked into several of the station's systems for fun. When he saw the enforcers attack the doctor, he did something that would change galactic history. He linked his stream directly to the quantum surveillance network and broadcast everything across human space. The video spread like wildfire through the galaxy's communication networks. Within the first hour, it was being watched on mining colonies in the asteroid belt, farming worlds on the outer rim, and military bases throughout human territory. The footage was crystal clear. A decorated human physician being electrocuted while trying to save a dying child, then watching helplessly as that child died because aliens wouldn't let her finish treatment. On the bridge of the TDF battlecruiser, Seoul's Pride, Admiral Hyunwoo Lee was reviewing routine patrol reports when his communications officer, Lieutenant Joo-hyun Park, approached with a grim expression. "Sir, you need to see this," she said, activating the main display screen. Admiral Lee watched the footage in complete silence. His jaw tightened as he saw Dr. Kim being attacked. His hands clenched into fists when little Minho stopped breathing. By the time the video ended, the temperature on the bridge seemed to have dropped 10 degrees. "How long ago did this happen?" he asked quietly. 4 hours, sir. The footage is spreading across every human world we have contact with. Admiral Lee had served in the Terran Defense Force for 30 years. He'd fought in the Outer Rim Wars, survived the siege of Titan Colony, and negotiated peace treaties with a dozen different alien species. But he'd never felt anger quite like this. Around the galaxy, the reaction was the same everywhere humans lived and worked. On Mars, construction crews stopped their work to watch the video on communal screens, their faces growing dark with fury. In the mining stations of Europa, workers shared the footage through encrypted channels, their calls for justice echoing through the tunnels. Dr. Minjun Choi, head of the Galactic Medical Alliance, watched the video in his office overlooking the crystal spires of New Geneva Colony. He immediately called an emergency meeting of all human physicians in the sector. Within hours, medical ships were changing course toward Kepler Station, their crews demanding answers. Meanwhile, back on the station, Dr. Kim had been dragged to a Valdorian detention facility in the lower levels. The paralysis had worn off, but her hands were bound with energy restraints that burned whenever she tried to move. The charges against her were serious: unlawful medical practice, residential zone violation, and interfering with Valdorian authority operations. The detention cells were cold and damp, designed for beings much larger than humans. Nari sat on the metal bench, thinking about Minho's face, about his parents' grief, about how everything had gone so wrong so fast, but she didn't know that her arrest had sparked something much bigger than one tragic incident. Across human space, fleets were mobilizing, politicians were making emergency calls, medical organizations were filing formal complaints with the Galactic Council. The footage of her trying to save Minho Park had become more than just a video. It had become a symbol of everything humans stood for, and everything they were willing to fight for. The boy's death wasn't going to be forgotten or buried in alien bureaucracy. The galaxy was about to learn what happened when you attacked humans who were trying to help others, and Admiral Lee was personally going to make sure they never forgot the lesson. The emergency session of the Sol System Legal Corps convened just 12 hours after Minho Park's death. Chief Prosecutor Sun Mi-yoon stood before a room filled with humanity's top legal minds, the holographic display behind her showing the now famous footage of Dr. Kim being attacked while trying to save a child's life. "This isn't just about one incident," she declared, her voice carrying the weight of centuries of human struggle for recognition in the galaxy. "This is about whether humans have the right to practice medicine freely, whether our doctors can save lives without fear of alien interference." Around the massive conference table, legal experts from every human colony nodded grimly. Dr. Kyung-Soo Han from the Medical Ethics Board leaned forward, his face pale with anger. "The interspecies emergency medical protocols are clear. Article 7 specifically states that no local authority can interfere with emergency medical treatment by licensed physicians." "The Valdorians claim their corporate charter overrides galactic law," replied legal advisor Minji Lee, pulling up holographic documents that floated above the table. "They're saying their residential zones are sovereign territory." Prosecutor Yoon's eyes hardened. "Then we'll show them exactly how wrong they are." Within 6 hours, the Sol System Legal Corps had filed the largest legal action in human history. The charges against the Valdorian corporate authority included violation of emergency medical protocols, unlawful detention of medical personnel, and negligent homicide in the death of Minho Park. The legal filing was over 3,000 pages long and backed by testimony from medical experts across the galaxy. But the legal response was just the beginning. Admiral Hyun-woo Lee stood on the bridge of his flagship, the massive battle cruiser Seoul's Pride, as it dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Kepler system. Behind him, 23 other ships of the Terran Defense Force emerged from the swirling vortex of faster-than-light travel. The fleet was magnificent and terrifying. Heavy cruisers with plasma cannons that could crack planets, fast destroyers, equipped with quantum torpedoes, and medical ships carrying the best human doctors in the galaxy. "Sir, Kepler Station is hailing us," reported Communications Officer Ju-hyun Park, her fingers dancing across the holographic controls. "The station commander wants to know our intentions." Admiral Lee smiled coldly. "Tell them we're here to ensure the safety of human medical personnel, and send a message to the Valdorian Authority. Tell them Admiral Lee requests an immediate meeting." The Soul's Pride was over a kilometer long, bristling with weapons and shield generators that crackled with blue energy. As it approached Kepler Station, smaller ships and trading vessels scattered like startled fish. The alien crews had never seen a human battle fleet this close, and the sight was both beautiful and terrifying. On the station, Valdorian Authority Director Grok watched the approaching fleet through his office viewport, his four arms trembling. Slightly, the largest ship alone was bigger than most Valdorian colonies, and there were 24 of them. "They're not firing," observed his assistant, a nervous creature with purple skin and too many eyes. "Not yet," Grok replied grimly. "But they could turn this entire station into space dust if they wanted to." Admiral Lee didn't come alone to the meeting. He brought Dr. Nari Kim, recently released from Valdorian detention, along with the parents of dead Minho Park and a full legal team. The conference room they chose was neutral territory, managed by the station's central authority rather than any single alien government. "Gentlemen," Admiral Lee began, his voice carrying the authority of someone who had commanded fleets in 3 different wars. "We're here because you killed a human child." Director Grok's translator struggled with the Admiral's tone. "The child died of natural causes. Our enforcers were maintaining order in accordance with... Your enforcers attacked a doctor while she was saving a life." Dr. Kim interrupted, her voice steady despite everything she'd been through. "They kicked away medical equipment that was keeping Minho alive." Admiral Lee activated a holographic projector, filling the room with the now famous footage. "This recording has been seen by over 2 billion humans across the galaxy. They're all asking the same question. What are we going to do about it?" The room fell silent as they watched Minho die again. "The Sol System Legal Corps has filed formal charges against your corporate authority with the Galactic Court," announced Chief Prosecutor Yoon, stepping forward with a data pad that glowed with official seals. "We're seeking criminal prosecution for violation of emergency medical protocols and negligent homicide." Director Grok's skin turned a sickly green color. "The Galactic Court has no jurisdiction over Valdorian corporate territories." "Actually, they do," Admiral Lee replied with a smile that held no warmth. "Emergency medical protocols supersede all local laws. It's been that way for over 200 years." Through the viewport, the human fleet hung in space like a promise and a threat. Medical ships were already docking with the station, bringing human doctors to treat anyone who needed help. The message was clear. Humanity would protect those who healed, no matter what the cost. This trial will set the precedent for human rights throughout alien-controlled space, Prosecutor Yoon declared. "Attack our doctors and face the consequences." The Valdorians were about to learn a hard lesson about human justice. The Galactic Court on the neutral moon of Sanctum had never seen anything quite like this trial. Representatives from over 40 different species filled the massive crystalline chamber, their various forms of communication creating a symphony of clicks, chirps, and electronic translations. At the center of it all sat the 9 justices, each from a different corner of the galaxy, their ancient wisdom respected by civilizations across known space. Dr. Nari Kim sat in the witness section, still wearing her Terran Medical Corps uniform. Beside her, Yeri and Jinwoo Park held hands tightly, their eyes never leaving the Valdorian defendants who sat across the chamber in energy restraints. The entire proceeding was being broadcast live across human space, with viewing parties happening on colony ships, mining stations, and military bases throughout the galaxy. Chief Justice Thala, a being of pure energy contained within a crystalline form, spoke in a voice that resonated through every translator in the chamber. "The evidence is clear and undeniable. The defendants interfered with emergency medical treatment, resulting in the preventable death of a child." Director Grok and his 3 enforcers sat hunched in their defendant pods, their grey skin now pale with fear. Their expensive legal team, from the Valdorian homeworld, had tried every argument they could think of, but the footage of Minho Park's death was impossible to explain away. "The court finds the Valdorian corporate authority guilty on all charges," Justice Thala continued. The crystalline chamber fell completely silent. "Furthermore, this court hereby establishes what shall be known as the Kim Doctrine. No authority, corporate or governmental, may interfere with emergency medical treatment provided by certified physicians. This ruling supersedes all local laws, corporate charters and territorial claims. The human section of the chamber erupted in cheers. On ships throughout the galaxy, human crews celebrated as they watched the broadcast. Dr. Kim felt tears streaming down her face, not for herself, but for little Minho, whose death had finally brought justice to countless others. Justice Kelnar, a massive creature with multiple tentacles and ancient eyes, added his voice to the ruling. The defendants are hereby sentenced to life imprisonment without possibility of parole. The Valdorian Corporate Authority will pay damages of 500 million galactic credits to the Park family and an additional 2 billion credits to establish the Emergency Medical Protection Fund. But the real victory wasn't in the courtroom. It was happening across the galaxy as news of the Kim Doctrine spread. On Kepler Station, the Valdorian residential authorities were already packing up their offices. Human medical teams, protected now by galactic law, were setting up emergency clinics in every residential block. The sight of human doctors treating alien children with the same care they'd shown Minho Park brought tears to many eyes. Admiral Hyunwoo Lee stood on the observation deck of the Soul's Pride, watching as medical ships from a dozen different human colonies docked with stations throughout the system. The fleet that had come for justice was now staying to help heal. Human doctors were spreading across Valdorian space, offering free medical care to anyone who needed it. "Sir," Communications Officer Joo-hyun Park approached with a smile on her face. "We're receiving requests for medical assistance from over 200 stations and colonies. Apparently, word has spread about human medical capabilities." The Admiral nodded, watching as a small shuttle launched from one of the medical ships. Inside, he knew, were doctors and nurses carrying supplies to treat an outbreak of crystalline flu on a mining colony that had been ignored by Valdorian authorities for months. Back on Earth, the Global Medical Council was being flooded with applications from young people wanting to join the Terran Medical Corps. Universities reported a 300% increase in medical school applications. The footage of Dr. Kim standing up to alien enforcers to save a child had inspired an entire generation. Dr. Min-jun Choi, head of the Galactic Medical Alliance, stood before a gathering of medical professionals from across human space. Behind him, a holographic statue of Dr. Kim treating young Minho rotated slowly, already being constructed on New Geneva Colony. "Today we establish the Nari Kim Memorial Hospital," he announced to thunderous applause. "It will be staffed entirely by volunteers and will treat anyone, regardless of species, corporate affiliation, or ability to pay. This is what it means to be human in the galaxy." The changes weren't just symbolic. Within months, the Kim Doctrine had been adopted by dozens of other species who had grown tired of corporate control over basic healthcare. The Zentorian Republic passed similar laws. The Crystal Confederacy established their own version of emergency medical protections. Even some Valdorian colonies, disgusted by their corporate authorities' actions, declared independence and requested human medical assistance. Dr. Nari Kim returned to Kepler Station 6 months later, but not as a regular physician. She now carried the title of Special Medical Envoy, with authority to establish emergency medical protocols throughout the sector. As her shuttle approached the station, she could see the changes everywhere. Medical symbols glowed on the sides of residential blocks. Emergency medical beacons had been installed in every corridor, and in the central plaza, a small memorial garden honored Minho Park, where children of a dozen different species played together under the watchful eyes of human medical staff. The galaxy had learned an important lesson. Humans didn't dominate through superior weapons or advanced technology. They earned respect through their unwavering commitment to help others, regardless of the cost. They proved that sometimes the greatest victory wasn't winning a battle, but saving a life. And they made sure that no child would ever die the way Minho Park had died, alone and helpless, while bureaucrats argued about jurisdiction. The end.